back up the hill. This afternoon, Pravrajika Anantaprana will be giving the Kena Upanishad, and she very kindly gave these printouts so we can follow it right along and take notes on it if you want to. She was in the San Francisco's convent when Swami Pravrajika came, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, just after Shogananda died?
Yes, he died in December of '69,
Okay.
and Pravrajika came in July of '70, about 6 months later.
And from, so, just like Prabhupada, of course. So, I don't know what to say. I think I'll let her start. And we'll have time then for questions and answers. Okay? Please come.
I will. I just have to deal with my refined professional folder. So just as Vedanta did, I'll begin with one of the peace chants associated with the Kena Upanishad, which is the Sahana Vavatu. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he nourish us. May we work together with great energy. May our study be vigorous and fruitful. May love and harmony dwell among us. Om. Peace, peace, peace. This Sahanavavatu chant prays that Brahman may protect and nourish us, both students and teachers. We have a difficult path as spiritual aspirants. The entire universe is Mahamaya, the illusion of reality, urging us to live and enjoy. We're trying, by taking up sadhana, to counter the power of the entire universe. So we shouldn't be surprised that obstacles crop up. The body and mind resist this discipline. There was a New Yorker cartoon recently by Roz Chast. Probably some of you know her. It's a guy sitting on a sofa like this. It says, the mind-body problem. And he's saying, get up. And from down here it says, no. So, we have headaches, we have sleepiness, lethargy, especially after lunch today, restlessness, and all the different elements of the universe, of Maya, tamas and rajas, they work their tricks on us. And the mind feels bored, distracted, restless, resentful, even rebellious. The prayer asks to protect us, both the teacher and the student. The teacher needs protection from the renegade student. I think we've all known, students who have left the path, and then we've known people who left the path in San Francisco who went on the radio and criticized the Swami, and one person wrote a book criticizing the Swami. So the teacher and the student both need protection from Brahman. We are advised to examine the teacher thoroughly, but after accepting him or her, We shouldn't let the mind go there to find shortcomings and criticize. Don't look for anything and accept it as a shortcoming. May love and harmony dwell among us. This is sometimes translated as, may we not hate each other. Really, this prayer applies to all of us, all of the time. Even if we live alone, we still live in society. So we go on struggling. But struggles are also accomplishments. Resisting the power of the universe, the push of the current of cosmic ignorance, is an accomplishment, just resisting. Swami Ashokananda says something about this. He says, but if you say, then where do we say that we have attained to something? Because struggles, every step of struggle is also an attainment. It is just as it were that you are climbing a high mountain, and your climbing is punctuated by many beautiful high plateaus. You climb, it is a struggle, and then you come to a beautiful ledge there, and there you rest, and from there you have a wonderful view. And you go up, and again there is something like that, you see. That is the fun of it. So let me go over a couple of summaries of the Upanishad before taking up the various sections. The Kena is called the Kena because the word in Sanskrit, Kena, means by whom. Its theme is, behind everything that happens is the presence of this mysterious force or entity, without whom nothing at all could function. We are encouraged to find that something and to recognize that this something is the sum and substance of everything, the reality of everything, the motive of everything. This Upanishad has 4 parts. The first 2 are the dialogue between the questioner and the rishi. At the outset, the questioner asks, what is making the mind land on objects? What makes the pranas, the vital forces, go on functioning? At whose desire do people speak? Who is the director of the eyes and ears? Excuse me. The answer is, it is being done by the all-pervading awareness, namely Brahman. I'm sorry, this is what happens when I try to talk after I've had lunch. Our human mind and our senses can't reach Brahman. It is beyond what we can know or not know. So it is impossible to capture with our physical or mental equipment. The rishi and the student continue with a series of paradoxical statements. Yes?
Can you explain what rishi is?
Oh, rishi, the word means seer. So it assumes that the rishi is one who has seen, who is illumined, who has seen reality. The teacher says, if you think, I have known Brahman well enough, then you know little. For the form of Brahman you see is that which is conditioned by people or by gods. It is but a trifle. Therefore you should inquire further about Brahman. The student responds, I do not think that I know it well, and I do not know that I do not know it. He of us who knows it, not he who knows that he does not know. It is apprehended by whomsoever it is not apprehended. By whomsoever it is apprehended, he does not know it. It is not known by those who know it. It is known by those who do not know it. Then he says, it is known by every ripple of thought. Next is a story. Now I'm just doing the summary, so we will get back to those. The story is the gods won a victory in a battle with the demons and got full of themselves and were congratulating each other. Brahma knew this and wanted to save them from themselves, so he appeared before them as a yaksha. And yaksha means adorable spirit. Although it's been translated by the word spirit, yaksham, Swami Ashokananda says that there are indications in the old books that they sometimes use that word to indicate something or someone which was not well known to them, about which they didn't have any definite knowledge. So it kind of means just this vague something. It is neither man nor woman, neither this nor that, an indefinable spirit. This is perfectly the theme of the Upanishad, the indefinable spirit. This yaksha challenged the gods, specifically Agni. Agni is fire. He challenged Agni, Vayu, and Indra. They failed his challenges and failed to figure out who he was. Finally, Indra, the king of the gods, saw in the area where the yaksha had been a beautiful woman, Uma Haimavati. This goddess enlightened Indra. In the last part of the final section, practical advice is given by the Rishi. Swami Nikhilananda summarizes this Upanishad by saying the philosophy underlying this story seems to be as follows. The gods stand for the psychic forces that control the sense organs. Indra, or I consciousness, is their ruler. So we all have our senses and we have the ego, which controls what the senses are going to do, what they're going after. Now and then the senses, the gods, are able to overcome a passion and get a sudden glimpse of Atman. Then they proudly feel that they can understand Atman's whole nature. The organ of speech, who is Agni or fire, thinks it can know the whole of Brahman through speech and through words. Prana, the vital force, here represented by Vayu, who is air or wind, thinks it alone controls a person's activity. They soon realize, however, the futility of their power and beat a retreat. Then the ego, or the individual soul, Indra, chastened and humbled, steps forward and the vision of Atman vanishes. There appears before Indra, the ego, Grace, or Uma, the consort of the Lord, who has the power of Brahman, Shakti, and also the wisdom of the Vedas, Brahma Vidya. She destroys the wrong notion of the ego and the senses and ultimately reveals the truth of Brahman. Thus the aspirant attains the supreme knowledge. It should be noted that one cannot even have a glimpse of the indwelling Atman unless the evil passions are subdued. Finally, according to the instruction of the Kena Upanishad, Brahman should be meditated upon as the pure intelligence underlying every mental state, every vritti, every mental wave or modification. Swami Ranganathananda summarizes it as follows. As everywhere else, the attempts at finding the solution of the great problems of life have been through the external world, just as the Greek mind or the modern European mind wants to find a solution of life and of all the sacred problems of being by searching into the external world. So also did our forefathers, and just as the Europeans failed, they failed also. But the Western people never made a move more. They remained there. They failed in the search for the solution of the great problems of life and death in the external world, and there they remained stranded. Our forefathers also found it impossible, but were bolder in declaring the utter helplessness of the senses to find the solution. Nowhere else was the answer better put than in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, from whence words come back reflected, together with the mind. Natatra chakshur gachati nawa gachati. There the eye cannot go, nor can speech reach. There are various sentences which declare the utter helplessness of the senses, but the rishis did not stop there. They fell back upon the internal nature of man. They went to get the answer from their own soul. They became introspective. They gave up external nature as a failure, as nothing could be done there, as no hope. No answer could be found. They discovered that dull, dead matter would not give them truth, and they fell back upon the shining soul of man, and there the answer was found. So that was Swami Ranganathananda's summary. Now to the verses. Section 1, verse 1. Who impels the mind to alight on its objects? At whose command does the vital force do its duty? At whose will do people utter speech? Who is the God that directs the eyes and ears? The first words are Keneshitam Preshitam, by whom, willed and impelled, wished and empowered. Not the eye. The eye just stupidly appropriates everything. See what happens to the silly ego if there's a tiny break in some little neuron. I won't hear or speak or be able to do anything. The remedy is through obedience to the teacher and humility toward everyone. Otherwise, the I constantly pushes up and gets in the way. The Gita says, a person overwhelmed by the sense of egoism thinks, I am the doer. God or Prakriti is the doer. We say, I speak. If I speak, then I should know how to produce speech. Linguists and neurologists have been studying and experimenting for decades, almost centuries, without agreeing about how speech is created or produced. Verse 2, the preceptor. It is the Atman, the spirit, by whose power the ear hears, the tongue speaks, the mind understands, and life functions. The wise person separates the Atman from these faculties, rises out of sense life, and attains immortality. In the Gospel, we have the song, Thou art my all in all, O Lord, the life of my life, the essence of essence. The power and execution of all the senses and the functioning of the mind and breath are all sourced from deep within. I think Swami Sarvapriyananda says in one of his talks, or several of his talks, about how if we were put in charge of our body, we would die immediately. We wouldn't know how to make anything work. I mean, if the ego had to do it, can you imagine? It would just fall apart instantly. Who is the agent behind this functioning? The external world is forcing us to breathe and speak and see. Only when we go beyond this superficial world will we discover that being who wills and directs the mind and speech and life. Going beyond this superficial world doesn't mean after the death of the body. We can go beyond this world if we achieve Jivan Mukti, freedom while living. The Atman is the living energy, the exuberant energy, which is behind the sense of hearing, sense of seeing, behind the mind itself. This divine energy, God has no purpose. He is complete in himself. There is nothing to gain, no motivation to seek accomplishment of some purpose. Yet without Atman, the life force will not make the mind and senses function. Atman is the ground, the cause, ever unrelated and unaffected. In Indian thought, each sense is enlivened by a living being, a goddess, for example. Wak, or Saraswati, is the goddess of speech. There's the story in the sayings of Sri Ramakrishna about the gardener who blamed Indra, the deity governing the hand, for his crime. There was once a Brahmin who tended his garden day and night, and a cow strayed into it and grazed a mango sapling, which the Brahmin had taken tender care of. When the Brahmin found the mango sapling, destroyed by the cow, he lost his head and he beat the cow with so much anger that the poor animal died. The news of the Brahmin killing the cow spread everywhere. When people condemned his cruel beating, the Brahmin explained that it was not he who had committed the crime, but his hand. Since the presiding deity of the hand is Lord Indra, the Brahmin transferred the blame to Indra. Lord Indra, who was aware of the issue, took the form of an old Brahmin and made a visit to this gardener Brahmin. On meeting the gardener, Lord Indra raved about the beauty of the garden. He praised to the skies the skillful gardener who was behind this beautiful work. The Brahmin was quick to take the praise by saying that it was his interest and hard work that had gone into the making of such a beautiful garden. Lord Indra, with folded hands, asked, how was it that he transferred the blame of killing the cow to poor Indra? And that silenced the Brahmin. So that verse said, rising out of sense life, we attain immortality. Do you want to sit down? Good. Okay. Okay. When we realize we are beyond the compulsion of speech, sight, hearing, thinking, we become free from the clutches of mind, of senses, of life, from both subjective compulsion and objective compulsion. So we are free from changes and therefore from mortality. That's why rising out of sense life lets us attain immortality. Verse 3, the eye does not go there, nor speech nor mind. We do not know it. We do not understand how anyone can teach it. How can this, which the mind cannot form a conception of, what to say of coming up with words to express it, be taught to anyone? This is why the Vedas are cited as a major proof of Brahman. Only one who has experienced this state is able to give us hints. So they think that the reason they say we do not understand how anyone can teach it is that teaching is kind of thought of as what you do through words. But they're saying, no, just as Vedanta was saying, it has to be through the living, seeing someone living it, that you really are taught it. Verse 4, that is surely different from the known, and it is beyond the unknown. Thus we have heard from the preceptors of old who have taught it to us. Other indeed it is than the known, neti neti. These forms, these sounds, the world that comes to us through our sense of touch, our dream world, none are Brahman. It cannot be known. It is other than the known, since we know things with the mind and senses. The eye cannot see him, speech or concepts cannot grasp him, nor the mind in any aspect. It is above the unknown. To us, unknown might mean unknown for now, but later we'll know it. But this is above the unknown. It transcends the unknown, since it is identical with the knower. Thus we have heard, since the Atman cannot be perceived by the senses and the mind, the student must hear about it from illumined souls. The ancients explained it, this peculiar situation, to us. Verse 5 through 9, I'll read there, kind of similar. That which cannot be expressed by speech, but by which speech is expressed, know that alone is Brahman, and not this that people here worship. 6, that which cannot be comprehended by the mind, but by which the mind is cognized, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this which people worship here. 7, that which cannot be perceived by the eye, but by which the eye is perceived, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this which people worship here. 8, that which cannot be heard by the ear, but by which hearing is perceived, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this which people worship here. 9, that which cannot be smelled by the breath, but by which the breath smells an object, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this which people worship here. Avang manasagocharam, beyond the reach of mind and speech. We're so immersed in the mind and all of its words, how can we try to grasp this? Not this that people here worship. This, that is to say, what can be described, distinguished, defined. As long as you think of God as describable, distinguishable, and definable, you have not attained Brahman. Again, we have to face this. The mind cannot think that which powers the mind itself, that which creates the mind, its flow, its concepts, its conclusions. The self of the nature of awareness cannot be known by the mind because it is that in and through which the mind itself knows and functions. Not this which people worship as this. This is a repetition of the end of verse 5 of section 1, and it refers to something objective, this, from the mundane to the sublime. And verses 6 and 9 have the same ending and the same explanation. All these statements reinforce this overriding idea. Everything we grasp with the mind and eye, ear and other senses, everything we do with the life energy, all of it is the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is that supreme spirit which supports the entire universe, unseen and by most people unsuspected. Section 2. The teacher said, if you think, I have known Brahman well enough, then you know little. For the form of Brahman you see is that which is conditioned by people or by gods. It is but a trifle. Therefore you should inquire further about Brahman. We can scarcely claim to know well that which had been clearly stated to be unknowable by the mind and senses. We have our mental conceptions, which are by definition pretty ridiculous for knowing the infinite, that which is conditioned by people or by gods. Swami Ashokananda explains that it refers to that part of divine nature which is you yourself, which has become the individual souls, and that part of the divine nature which has found expression in the gods. That's what it means by conditioned by people or by gods. Under gods are to be subsumed all those infinite number of phenomena over which the gods preside. So it is being said by saying, the form of Brahman you see is that which is conditioned by people or by gods, that we are referring to the whole of the universe, living and non-living. Verse 2, the disciple says, I do not think I know well, nor do I think that I do not know. Whoever among us comprehends both as the not unknown and the known, they comprehend it. This Upanishad is so hard to figure out when they do these things. I do not think I know well, nor do I think that I do not know. What is not known is, after all, the inmost self. So it cannot be said to be unknown, yet still it can't be known as an object is known. Swami Vivekananda says in The Absolute and Manifestation, you must not go home with the idea that God is unknowable in the sense in which agnostics put it. The expression is not used in the sense in which it may be said that some questions are unknown and unknowable. God is more than known. This chair is known, but God is intensely more than that, because in and through him we have to know this chair itself. He is the witness, the eternal witness of all knowledge. Whatever we know, we have to know in and through him. He is the essence of our own self. He is the essence of this ego, this I, and we cannot know anything excepting in and through that I. To know the chair, you have to know it in and through God. Thus, God is infinitely nearer to us than the chair, but yet he is infinitely higher. Neither known nor unknown, but something infinitely higher than either. He is yourself. That's the end of Swamiji's quote. The preceptor says, verse 3, it is known to those to whom it is unknown, and they do not know it to whom it is known. It is unknown to the person of true knowledge, but to the ignorant it is the known. This is this paradox, clever paradox again. If you think you have apprehended it, you're sorely mistaken. It is beyond apprehension. But one who has experienced it may be said to have known it while not knowing it in the common understanding of knowing. What is identical to ourself is non-separate and therefore can't be the object of knowledge, and yet can't be said to be unknown. Verse 4, it is really known when it is known in and through every modification of mind, for by such knowledge one attains immortality. By Atman, one attains real strength, and by knowledge, immortality. Pratibodha viditam, that's part of that verse in Sanskrit. Known through every mental act, every pulsation of knowledge and awareness. Our practice can be to recognize the presence of this infinite consciousness in every act of sense perception even. Swami Ranganathananda says, Atmana vindate viryam, that's also part of this. Man gains energy through the knowledge of the Atman, says the Kena Upanishad. The unique quality of this strength, of this energy, is that it is entirely constructive and beneficent, for it is the strength of love. The Kena helps us to discover in experience itself the presence of the infinite. the Absolute as the pure self. As Swamiji says, do not seek him, just see him. We must know it by participation, not by proxy. Otherwise, it is not our own. The Upanishadic teachers ask the student to treat teaching as working hypothesis and validate by one's own experience. The universe of experience certainly must have a within. The true sadhaka is the spiritual aspirant whose heart genuinely hungers for the transcendental pure life of the spirit. The sadhaka attitude, wherever we are, at work, at leisure, or in whatever situation we may be, the one constant factor is that our hearts are pursuing truth, that we are seeking the pure and deathless self in and through all experience. Verse 5, whoever realizes it here in this world attains the true goal of life. If one does not realize it here, a great destruction awaits. Perceiving the Atman in every single being, the wise person rises from sense life and attains immortality. Swami Ashokananda says, then there is truth. Of course there is truth. It has another significance. There is truth. Not only you perceive the truth here, but that even this earth then appears not as earth, time not as time, but the earth appears as spirit with a thin guise of earth. It is, as it were, through the transparent earth form, you perceive the spirit substance everywhere. You lose this inner vision, everything gets dim. The fun has gone out of everything. All this beauty, all this joy that you see in this universe, that is the reflection of the joy and the beauty you discover in the spirit. And if you lose that within yourself, then you find out the world also that, then you find out of the world also that joy and beauty have vanished away. Section 3, now for the story. Verse 1, preceptor. It is said that Brahman once won a victory for the gods over the demons. Though the victory was due to Brahman, the gods became elated. They said to themselves, really, this victory is ours. The glory is only ours. The gods became elated. Sanskrit is amahiyanta. The gods were making much of themselves. Verse 2, Brahman, to be sure, knew their vanity and appeared before them, but they did not understand who that adorable spirit was. Verse 3, they said to Agni, fire, O Jataveda, Jataveda means all-knower, find out who this adorable spirit is. Jataveda means Jata, which what has been born, and Veda knows. So the whole meaning is near omniscient. So Agni is supposedly near omniscient. Verse 4, Agni hastened to the spirit. The spirit asked him who he was. Agni replied, I am known as Agni, and also as Jataveda, the omniscient. Verse 5, what power do you have, you who are so well known? Asked the spirit. Why, I can burn up everything, whatever there is on earth, replied Agni. Verse 6, the spirit put a straw down and said, burn it. Agni rushed to it, but was unable to burn it. So he returned to the gods and said, I could not find out who this spirit is. Verse 7, then the gods turned to Vayu, air. Oh, Vayu, find out who this adorable spirit is. He agreed. Verse 8, Vayu hastened to the spirit. The spirit asked him who he was, and Vayu replied, I am known as Vayu, Matarishwan, the king of air. Matarishwan means the courser of the atmosphere. Wind goes everywhere, throughout all layers, the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere. Quite a confident self-designation on Vayu's part. Vayu, he who is always moving. Verse 9, what power do you have, you who are so well known? Asked the spirit. Why, I can blow away everything, whatsoever there is on earth, said Vayu. Verse 10, the spirit put down a straw and said, blow that away. Vayu dashed at it, but was unable to move it. So he returned to the gods and said, I could not find out who that adorable spirit is. Matarishwan also means he who pervades the subtle space, that is, thought, intelligence, reason. This God who embodies reason cannot grasp Brahman and comes away defeated. Agni goes first as the mouthpiece of the gods. Make way for his Lord, make way for his majesty. Agni is the god of speech, since fire was the mouthpiece to receive offerings to the gods. Fire is latent in everything in the universe, as atoms, that is, as energy. Agni's other name, Jataveda, means whatever has been born, the knower of that. Fire as atomic energy is in everything, so Agni pervades everything. And then speech represents knowledge. All information requires words. So fire represents the knower of everything. Agni could not get anything with his words, so he turned back defeated. Agni's and Vayu's failures made them think. Swami Ashokananda uses this story to reassure us. He says, we count defeat as strength, not only success as strength. It's a brave person who can count defeat as strength. A life of continuous victory is half revealed. Truth is beyond victory and defeat. One who is undepressed by any catastrophe has achieved freedom from the power of everything in the universe of phenomena. Verse 11, then the gods said to Indra, O Maghavan, find out who this adorable spirit is. Indra agreed and hastened toward the spirit. But the spirit disappeared from his sight. Verse 12, then Indra saw in that very region of the sky a wondrously beautiful woman, the daughter of the snowy mountains, Himavat. And of her he asked, who could this adorable spirit be? Section 4, verse 1, she replied, it was Brahman. Indeed, through Brahman's victory alone have you attained glory. Then Indra finally understood that the spirit was Brahman. Many commentators consider Indra in this story to represent the Jivatman, the individual soul or ego. He received the grace of Vidya Shakti, the benevolent side of Mahamaya. Sri Ramakrishna talks about Vidya and Avidya, and he asked M if his wife was represented Vidya or Avidya, and M made the mistake of saying, oh, she's ignorant, and then M really got blasted by Sri Ramakrishna, and you are a man of knowledge. Reading between the lines, the teachers say that when the yaksha disappeared, Indra became thoughtful and sat and meditated. As he concentrated with humility and longing, the divine benevolent power was gracious to him and revealed the truth. The point of the story was to indicate that it is the power of Brahman that makes everything possible. Without the power of Brahman, we cannot accomplish anything. And that story itself was required to illustrate the whole philosophy of the Upanishad, that it is only because it is motivated by Brahman that our life force works, our mind works, our senses function, and all the rest. So it's obvious that Indra really had an experience of Brahman. In his darshan of Uma, who is Vidya Shakti, the power of wisdom and enlightenment, Indra's being was illumined. Uma was Bahusho Bhamana, extraordinarily effulgent. In the Devi Mahatmyam, the verse says, all types of knowledge, O goddess, are different forms of thee. Shankara says Vidya, spiritual knowledge, is the most luminous among all luminous things. So Uma, being Vidya Shakti, is appropriately called extraordinarily effulgent. Verse 2, these gods, Agni, Vayu, and Indra, excelled the other gods, since they approached very near and were the first to know that it was Brahman. Verse 3, and since Indra approached Brahman the nearest, and since he was the first to know that it was Brahman, he excelled the other gods. Verse 4, this is the description of Brahman with regard to the gods. It is like a flash of lightning. It is like a wink of the eye. Teaching. The word uses adesha, which indicates an instruction, which is compulsive. If the instruction itself is truth, it has a compulsion about it. Like a flash of lightning, it is like a wink of the eye. In the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna says, now and then, a man catches a glimpse of his real self and becomes speechless with wonder. At such times, he swims in an ocean of joy. It is like suddenly meeting a dear relative. Swami Ashokananda says, when this ignorance is removed, when the first vision comes, as it were, the scales fall off our eyes, or as it were, a screen has been removed quickly, with lightning speed, from the face of reality, and then we see the whole of reality, the infinite reality flashing before us, and immediately again it closes. He referenced Sri Ramakrishna's vision told in the Gospel where he was making a hole that kept closing, but finally he was able to make a large hole. This is analogous to our state. From time to time, a person gets tiny glimpses, tiny flashes that end, which leave him longing for greater experience. There seems to be only a high wall without any opening. But finally, after great effort and the grace of God, that vision opens up again. There's a selection in the Imitation of Christ, 347:2. Mind what thou art about. Labor faithfully in my vineyard. I will be thy reward. Write, read, sing, lament, keep silence, pray, bear adversities manfully. Eternal life is worth all these and great combats. Peace shall come on one day which is known to the Lord. And it will not be day or night, such as it is at present, but light everlasting, infinite brightness, steadfast peace, and safe repose. Thou shalt not then say, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Neither shalt thou cry out, woe is me that my sojourning is prolonged, for death shall be no more, but never failing health, no anxiety, but blessed delight, and a society sweet and glorious. Verse 5. Now the instruction about Brahman from the point of view of the individual self. The mind, as it were, goes to Brahman. The seeker, by means of the mind, communes with it intimately again and again. This should be the determination of the mind. The mind here refers to the whole being, including feeling. Remembers constantly means the whole mind goes inward. Volition, will, means determination and resolve. Having the lightning flash of divine reality, the mind is irresistibly attracted and gathers itself fully with deep determination. One doesn't just cultivate a state of willpower, but willpower tinctured with devotion to God. Verse 6, Brahman is well known as Tadvana, the adorable of all. It should be worshipped by the name of Tadvana. All beings love those who worship Brahman thus. Tadvanam means the dearest of all, the essence of all beauty and love, of all attraction. Shankara says, Brahman is well known by the name of Tadvanam because it is the innermost self of all beings, and therefore the most adorable, the most worshipful. Verse 7, the disciple said, Teach me, sir, the Upanishad. The preceptor replied, I have already told you the Upanishad. I have certainly told you the Upanishad about Brahman. The word Upanishad means sitting near. The idea is that the student sits near the teacher and has a loving, close relationship with him. The teacher's heart opens to the student and gives out the secret of spiritual realization. It is called secret because it is so deep and because it should not be told to everyone. The student wanted something practical from the teacher, how to attain this deeply desirable tadvanam. Verse 8, austerity, self-restraint, and dedicated work. These are the foundations of it, the saving knowledge of the Upanishads. The Vedas are all its limbs. Truth is its abode. So this contemplation of tadvanam has to be supported, and the supports are tapas, which is austerity, self-control, and work. If God is infinite being, then he is mixed up with my own being. Every moment I feel myself, I also feel him. All that is wanted is to just separate him from my own small, foolish self. Mama Brahma Nirakuryam, may I not deny Brahman. Let there be no doubt, and may my mind not turn away from the supreme vision. By denial is meant neglect. Swami Ranganathananda has a point in his Gita commentary where he says, there is nothing unspiritual in human life. In Vedantic vision, everything is spirituality. That infinite Brahman is in you, in me, in all, pulsing. We neglect it. Don't neglect it, says Sri Krishna. It is that which gives meaning to what you are and what you do. Otherwise, you remain a creature in the hands of the forces of physical nature, of those processes of nature. Don't be so, says Vedanta. Try to understand this truth. May I never cease to see God. May I never stop struggling to regain this vision and become established in it. Swamiji says, yes, in one sense it is very difficult, but in another sense it is quite easy. Can you tell me where this I exists? How can you speak of anything being killed which never exists at all? Man only remains hypnotized with the false idea of an ego. When this ghost is off from us, all dreams vanish. And then it is found that the one self only exists, from the highest being to a blade of grass. This will have to be known, to be realized. All practice or worship is only for taking off this veil. When that will go, you will find that the sun of absolute knowledge is shining in its own luster. For the Atman only is self-luminous and has to be realized by itself. How can that which can be experienced only by itself be known with the help of any other thing? Hence the scripture says, Keneshitam Preshitam, from the Kena Upanishad. Well, through what means is that to be known, which is the knower? Whatever you know through the instrumentality of your mind, but mind is something material. It is active only because there is the pure self behind it. So how can you know that self? Through your mind. But this only becomes known after all, that the mind cannot reach the pure self, no, nor even the intellect. Our relative knowledge ends just there. Then when the mind is free from activity or functioning, it vanishes, and the self is revealed. This state has been described by the commentator Shankara as supersensuous perception. Disciple, this is where one of Swamiji's, talks with the disciple. But sir, the mind itself is the I. If that mind is gone, then the I also cannot remain. Swamiji, yes, the state that comes then is the real nature of the ego. The I that remains then is omnipresent, all-pervading, the self of all. Just as when the jar is broken, the space within becomes universal space. For with the destruction of the jar, that enclosed space is not destroyed. The puny I, which you were thinking of as confined in the body, becomes spread out and is thus realized in the form of the all-pervading I, or the self. Hence what matters it to the real I or the self, whether the mind remains or is destroyed. What I say you will realize in course of time. As you go on with proper hearing and proper thinking, you will fully understand it in due time, and then you will go beyond mind. Then there will be no room for any such question. Hearing all this, the disciple remained quiet on his seat, and Swamiji, as he gently smoked, continued, how many scriptures have been written to explain this simple thing, and yet men fail to understand it? How they are wasting this precious human life on the fleeting pleasures of some silver coins and the frail beauty of women. Wonderful is the influence of Mahamaya, Mother, O Mother. And in the Gospel, this is the last thing I have. Thou that is that dancest, Lord, and thou that singest the song. Thou it is who clappest thy hands in time with the music's beat. But man, who is an onlooker merely, foolishly thinks it is he. Though but a puppet, man becomes a god if he moves with thee. Thou art the mover of the machine, the driver of the car, but man is weighted down with woe, dreaming that he is free. Thou art the root of everything, thou the soul of our souls. Thou art the master of our hearts. Through thine unbounded grace, thou turnest even the meanest sinner into the mightiest saint. That's so we have a break now and then Q&A. Okay. So, Q&A.
I have the Q machine. She has the A machine. Anyone would like the Q machine?
Yes.
So I'm looking at part 1, verses 5 through 9, where it's mentioning speech, mind, eye, ear, and breath, all failing to identify that. I was recently, I think, listening to another talk that was talking about the 24 cosmic principles, what are they? The karmendriyas and the gyanendriyas. Are these correlated with that?
I don't know that they're correlated. I mean, they're talking about the same thing, that is the jivatman, the individual self, and the faculties of the mind and senses. So, I mean, that's the karmendriyas are the organs of action, and the jnanendriyas are the organs of knowledge. So that would be eye, ear, and so forth, knowledge. And then the hands and the feet and so forth are the organs of action. So it's basically the same principle that these are the faculties of the Jivatman. But I don't quite know how it would be correlated, except that, it's just a different grouping. Because the point of this Upanishad is that, the eye can't see itself, and the ear can't hear itself, and the mind can't know itself. So that's why we need to find out the knower of these faculties.
There's a question.
Or a comment.
You mentioned that, I forgot my question. I think you're quoting from, what is it? I'm sorry. Well, the darkness, the glass is dark, and we need to go through it to see the soul. That, I know that was said by, I think that was said either in the Bhagavad Gita or also by St. Paul in the Bible. Now we see through a glass darkly, but then we will see face to face. Did Buddha have a saying such as that?
I don't know.
We don't know.
I'm not familiar. I mean, nothing comes to mind. Does anybody know if Buddha had any saying like that?
I just wonder.
Yeah, I don't know Buddhism that well either.
Ramakrishna?
I just know the classic Buddhist things,
How
the
about,
ones we teach in Sunday school.
what about Ramakrishna? Ramakrishna, is it just the dive deep, or was there anything about breaking through, overcoming our sensory life and our ego, so that we can then realize?
I can't pull up a quote to tell you the truth. Does anybody know?
I know
Yeah.
they're there.
Yeah, we know they're there.
Just one. So maybe it's more related to just the realization that seeing God everywhere, to make that the practice, so that, huh? I think that's.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your point. Could you restate it?
It's just, again, probably on how to practice, or how to think, or how to feel this this universal love that we have within us too, and is it by maybe practicing seeing God, or being more aware that God is everywhere. Is that a question?
I'm not quite sure if it's a question. I mean, it's a good statement, that's for sure.
No, I just wondered if it was
I'm
related to what you just said.
Buddhists believe in God.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know where Buddhists believe in God. They believe in
Shunya.
emptiness.
Yeah, shunya.
And emptying the mind so that you experience the oneness, but it's not considered the oneness. But I don't know much about Buddhism.
Isn't that sort of what this is saying, though? You empty everything out, and then all that's left is the knower. So
Well, I mean, that's one of the practices in Raja Yoga, is completely stilling all the vrittis of the mind, all the modifications of the mind, so that then what's, the mind, the pure mind.
yeah,
Once the
knower-
mind has been cleared of all vrittis, then it's the pure mind, and that, Sri Ramakrishna says, is the same as the pure self. So that, I mean, Buddhism uses the practice of emptying everything in the way that a yogi stills all the modifications of the mind for the same purpose, I think. I don't know. People who know yoga and know Buddhism would probably be able to, clarify that.
But there has to be another step, though. If you've emptied everything out, then the knower knows itself. Then there has to be some, I feel there has to be some kind of like little leap of faith in there.
Well, they say that, I can't remember the Sanskrit term. The Sanskrit term for just having one vritti, which is the vritti of Brahman.
Right.
And then it takes over all the other vrittis and becomes the, illumination. But I can't remember the name of that in Sanskrit. Yeah.
Isn't that what Buddhism and Vedanta, that's one of the little points that we're not.
In consonance to on, yeah.
Not
Yeah.
match.
What you mean between Buddhism
And Advaita Vedanta. Yeah, Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, nirvana and purna, emptiness and fullness are basically the same state or the same experience.
Right.
But the Buddhists term it as shunyata, and the Vedanta says purna, or fullness. So, but getting there is what you're asking. Getting to that last step
Yes.
from the empty mind, from the stilled mind, to the illumination.
To the illumination.
Yeah.
Actually, pre-still mind. Getting the mind to be still it might be like 9/10 of the journey.
Or 99.
Yes, because that is.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the journey. But yeah, because I remember somebody questioning Sarvapriyananda once about this, and he admitted that there was at the end somewhat of a leap of faith here.
Well, I don't know. It's faith. It's a leap,
It's
but
a
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. A leap of faith is a different. I think it's a different terminology.
Yeah.
But there's certainly there's a gap between the stilled mind and no mind, or the the pure mind.
And then there's the lightning bolt.
Flash of lightning. But I think to some extent, like what Swami Shokananda said, that this flash of lightning or wink of an eye, that can describe, the illumination, but can also describe these little glimpses that, especially people when they're very new on the path, I think God, grants them so that they'll get stuck and decide to stick with this because they've had a tiny, tiny, tiny glimpse and they go, oh wait, there is something here, But I think it's, I think it can be either one, but according to the way Swami Shokananda had interpreted it, it could be also considered one of those beginning glimpses where the mind, has a little tiny glimpse of reality and then goes, yes, this is worth sticking with, trying to, accomplish the end of this quest.
Swami Prabhupada said that when somebody questioned why are we meditating, why do we meditate, that may not have been the exact question, but what I do remember is that he said, you're getting something out of it, or else you wouldn't be doing it. So I think that the steps can be imperceptible. I don't know if we can really pinpoint it, but there's something that keeps us going.
Well, I think practice of any of the things, as the Kena Upanishad says, self-restraint, austerity, and dedicated work, all those practices, just like the dripping of a stalactite, you get you build up, you build up your character, and you build up a little bit of peace of mind, and if you know, unless you have some terrible shock in life and decide to throw the whole thing overboard, you know, you keep it up long enough, and gradually, you know, you do have a lot more peace of mind than you did, you know, 10 years previously or 20 years previously. So I think that's maybe what Prabhudananda was referring to.
This is helpful to me. I don't know if it's truly helpful, but it seems to be. I perceive it like that. I've always thought of myself as being, when I'm in my right mind, a witness. And if I'm feeling upset or depressed, I think that's not me, that's my mind.
That's the surface mind, yeah.
Just try to distinguish between what my mind is feeling and what the part of me I want to be in touch with more is experiencing. The whole idea of a witness has helped kind of inch me along, I guess I'd say.
No, that totally is true. Yes.
You were with Swami Prabhudananda from pretty early on. You a nice Catholic girl from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Goes across country in a VW bus. And
No,
then,
it wasn't. It was a Ford Econoline van
wow,
and a
cheesy.
Plymouth.
So
66 Plymouth. Yes, go ahead.
and then you were with him so many years. Tell us about Swami Prabhudananda and why you found him so personally inspiring enough to join a convent.
Well, I think to some extent my motivation for the convent, being brought up Catholic, they say that, you know, every family wants to have one child who has a vocation. Well, my older sister joined the convent, but after 5 years, John the 23rd, you know, Pope John the 23rd changed a lot and threw open the doors of the Catholic Church and wanted the monastic orders to be not so insulated and isolated. And things kind of changed, and my sister then didn't stay because things just changed so drastically. But then, but I had been brought up with this idea, so I knew that, you know, monasticism was an acceptable cultural thing. And then when Virjaprana and I, you know, came to California, we had been reading some Gandhi and some Yogananda, Paramahamsa Yogananda, and we were interested in these ideas. But we decided between us that we didn't want to really get involved in all that, because you'd have to give your whole life to it, you know. So, but then, you know, we were introduced to the Vedanta Society by one of Virjaprana's dental hygiene patients. So we came to the temple from Monterey, and then we were told by this patient that there was a real Indian Swami there. And this was very attractive. So when we, you know, heard him, and to tell you the truth, I think it was Swami Vivekananda that really captured me in terms of, you know, reading Swami Vivekananda, because I had studied medieval philosophy in college, and I was like, this is just total bunk. I mean, I couldn't figure it out at all. It seemed like just so much, you know, construction out of just mental ideas. It didn't seem like anything solid or anything, you know, realizable. So when I started reading Swamiji, it felt so true and vital, and anyway, I really loved it. So to some extent, I can say that Swamiji attracted me to Vedanta. And then, of course, Swami Prabhudananda's wonderful, loving character, kept both of us from dropping off. He was very understanding. When we first came, he told the nuns, don't talk about religion to them. He understood us too well. But, we gradually got, sucked in. But I think,
How long ago was that?
that was, Swami Prabhupada arrived in San Francisco in July of 1970. And we came to our first lecture in January of 71 from Monterey with this dental patient. So,
Tell them the name of the lecture that we first heard.
I don't remember.
Work is worship.
Oh, I didn't remember that. But it was, we were very interested in the philosophy and the people. So, and then I think probably also what clinched the deal was Olima, because that spring, April of 71, we were invited to the groundbreaking for the Women's Retreat House, and we hadn't been to the retreat. And that just really did it. That was, seeing Olima and seeing the property. Then we wanted to help with the Olima work, so we started driving up on Friday afternoon and staying overnight at the convent and having breakfast at the convent, going to Olima and working, coming back Saturday evening and going to Swami's class, and then spending the night again, and then having breakfast, and then going to the lecture, and then going to the choir practice, and then going back. So we did that for a number of months, and then, we moved to San Francisco briefly and then joined the convent. So it was Olima. I can't speak for Viraj I think it's different, but anyway, for me it was Olima in the convent and Swami Vivekananda, and then with Swami's Prabhudananda's guiding hand kept us from, dropping out. And when I joined the convent, Swami Swahananda was there because it was Sri Ramakrishna's, it was Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. And I met him on the mezzanine above the auditorium foyer. And he was coming downstairs, I think it was after the puja was over, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't leave." We had so many wonderful swamis in our lives.
Tell him about his Easter question.
Oh, well, he'd been introduced to Thanksgiving and the turkey, and then when Easter came, he was introduced to Easter and Easter candy and the eggs and the rabbit and all that. And he said, "Do you eat the bunny?" Which is a totally legitimate question, yeah.
Actually, it's chocolate.
Yeah, we do. Yes, Michael.
So this is from part 2, verse 4. At the end, it says, "By Atman, one obtains real strength, and by knowledge, immortality." And I think you used a Sanskrit term that I wrote down sounded like pratibodha viditam.
Viditam, yes.
Can you explain that? I like the way that these Sanskrit terms feel and sound, and I've heard parts of these connected to other explanations, but I don't always know what the root of the meaning means. If you have any understanding of that, could you expand a little bit?
Well, pratibodha is knowledge. Like Buddha and Bodha is enlightenment. Viditam, immortality. So that's, I think, the Sanskrit explanation. But it's a word that pratibodha viditam is used in a lot of commentaries and things. It's a very well-known term from the Kena Upanishad. I like it too. I think that's why you threw it in, because I.
So this coming after, I think on verse 1 from part 2, where it says, the form of Brahman you see is that which is conditioned by people or by gods. It is but a trifle. And you said, I think, the whole of living and non-living.
Non-living,
something.
yes.
So is this sort of describing the path of neti, to say anything you see, everything you see, the whole of living and non-living is conditioned by people or gods?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it, Michael. That's very good.
And then that would be the basis for the answer being pratibodha viditam?
Yes, because you have to know, I mean, the whole point of the Kena is, all of the senses and the mind are powered by Brahman, by Vidya Shakti. And if we try to know things looking outward with the senses, like in the Kena Upanishad, the senses are contaminated because they go outward instead of inward. So they have to be turned inward. So if we, if you go to that form of Brahman, which is conditioned by people and by gods, in other words, by the mind and by the senses and by the living and the non-living things. If you try to go outward, as Swami Ranganathananda said, that the rishis gave that up because they could see that it wasn't getting anywhere. So we have to abandon that external source of knowledge, looking externally for knowledge, for final knowledge. We can just get more information that way, but not anything beyond the surface. So yes, neti.
I'm going to look at part 3 and a verse, I think it's with verse 4. And it's about Agni. And I think you said something about Agni is the god of speech?
Yes.
Whatever has been born
that's right.
is knower of everything.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Well, Agni is fire, and in the Vedic, the Vedas kind of evolved from this Brahmanism, which was worshipping the gods, the various gods, through offerings made into fire. So the Vedic, in the Vedic days, the fire sacrifice was how everything was to be achieved. But they didn't really think about anything other than achieved on this plane of reality, on the world plane, or a heaven. But they offered these offerings into the fire. So Agni was the god who carried these offerings to the other gods that were being worshipped through the fire ceremony. So he's the mouthpiece of the gods, and therefore he's speech. So you have to, in the Vedic sacrifice, you have to have all the mantras repeated perfectly. If you don't repeat them perfectly, you can achieve the absolute opposite of what you're doing the worship for, which can be disastrous. So, speech is very important in the Vedics.
Would you ask them for forgiveness for it?
If I might make mistakes.
And the whole fire too.
My inadvertently say something.
So Agni is the one that carries back to the gods?
Yes.
What does he carry back to the gods?
He carries the offerings. I mean, they're burnt
he
up.
Carries it. Oh, that's right. Oh, so
But, you know,
That's
even in
I
those
know.
days, they had a subtler idea. So if you offer, you know, a beautiful fruit into the fire and it's burnt up, the essence goes to the gods. So,
Smoke rises.
Uh-huh.
Smoke rises.
yeah.
Smoke rises. And so we offer too.
Mhm.
Okay, and so I think the reason I always refer to either Christianity or Buddhism is because that's how I've learned. And
Yes, of
grown.
course. Yeah.
And so again, so with the speech in Genesis, it said in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Would that
And the
be
word was God
the
as
Word
well.
was God.
Yes.
So is that a comparison that's fair to make on a
Yes,
spiritual
yes,
level?
because, I mean, in Vedanta, we say Om
Yeah.
is God. Om is Brahman.
Mm.
So a lot of Vedantic commentators say that that statement in John is Vedantic. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yes.
And what's the other thing that we did not? Oh, that's the other one about.
But
We don't understand
speech, I mean, it's not the same as speech in terms of mantras and all that. It's like Om, the sound symbol. That's the sound symbol of God. So that's why it is the same as God. Okay. Anahata sound, you mean the anahata? Well, anahata is the unstruck. What?
That pervades the universe.
Yeah, that the word means unstruck. So in other words, it's not created by any material force. The vibration of Om, yeah, that pervades the universe. Yes, sound. See, we're getting back to Buddhism there again. Sound of one hand clapping.
In physics is that the universe, the string, what's it called, chaos? Chaos theory or string theory is that,
Oh, don't get me into string theory.
no,
I'm completely lost to get
no,
into string theory.
I'm not, I just like the little part about that the universe is composed of these small musical vibrations, and that's what we're composed of too. So. Thank you.
Doesn't Swamiji say somewhere that Om is the root of all sound? It
Yes,
goes
yes, yeah.
from the back to the front of the mouth.
Yes, yes.
Correctly said, Om.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the root of all sound.
Yes, it's the source of all sounds. All sounds derive from those components of that movement. Hmm? Yeah.
In part 4, verse 6, could you just explain more about this one? Brahman is well known as Tadvana, the adorable of all. It should be worshipped by this name. All beings love those who worship Brahman thus.
Yes.
How, I assume that's a Sanskrit term?
Tadvana, yes.
I
That's
have not heard it, but I
Yeah.
like this verse.
Yeah, yeah. Me too. I really like that. Well, the adorable of all, I mean, when we're practicing Vedanta, we recognize that, you know, nobody has to tell us that we exist, and nobody has to tell us that, you know, we think and feel. So the sat and the chit are there, but the ananda is elusive. We don't feel ananda much. We don't realize that, you know, the bliss of Brahman is what supports us, because we are, you know, so clouded with all the varied and contradictory ideas. But I think I was telling someone that one of our very wonderful devotees at Olima was at our youth forum for the teenagers, and he was saying how the reason we are upset by what's going on outside of us and we see everything as imperfect is that we have this perfection inside of us, and that's what gives us the basis for seeing what is imperfect and unacceptable and unbearable, because we have that perfection. And I think we just fail to feel that ananda until our minds are really stilled and we're beginning to be illumined. But the tadvana, the adorable of all, the teachers say that the one who is the most loved, we love our own self the most. Nobody wants to destroy their own self. When people have suicidal ideation, they want to destroy their mind, but they don't really want to destroy themselves. So nobody wants to destroy his own self, and the own self, our self, is the basis of this bliss. So that is why it is the most adorable of all. And of course, that is the idea in the devotion to God, is that we don't, like when Sri Krishna mentions all of his manifestations in chapter 11, he doesn't say, he's smallpox or, among diseases. He talks about, yes, he's not the coronavirus. He's the Himavad, he is the mountain, among mountains he is the Himalaya, like that. So when we're worshiping God, we think about all the positive, lovable attributes of God. And these are what are mentioned in the Bhagavatam, the story of, all the verses about Vishnu and all the story of Krishna. All the lovable aspects are mentioned. So, this is what helps the mind to be attracted to God this way. We know, because we worship Divine Mother, that Divine Mother encompasses all things that are repulsive and also adorable. But, it's because of her strength and her protection that we worship her.
Krishna says too that come worship me, adore me only, and I will come to you. Not you. We sing that song.
Yes, yes.
Every time it's, I'm not true. As simple as that, right? As simple as that.
What is the etymology of tadvana?
I don't know.
Is it tat? Is it
It's
tat?
probably tat.
Tat plus something, right?
Yeah. It's probably like tattva, which means thatness.
Right.
So, but I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
On the 8th verse of part 4, it says, austerity, self-restraint, and dedicated work are the foundations of it, or saving knowledge of the Upanishad. So is that comparative to the 4 yogas?
Yeah, it really is. Dedicated work is like karma yoga. I don't think really the mention of austerity and self-restraint are almost more like Raja Yoga. But all of those practices are necessary for the practice of any path. You have to have self-restraint when you're practicing worship of God, and you have to have austerity when you're practicing worship of God, and certainly you have to have austerity and self-restraint when you're practicing dedicated work. And for Jnana Yoga, you can't be partying all night and then trying to meditate all day, or, reason about God all day. So all of these practices are necessary for all 4 paths that Swamiji mentions.
And a karma yoga seems to be what I feel like I'm more drawn to, or what my life has been about. So that would be how it, that would be dedicated work then. And
Yes.
So how I approach that with the same, or how a person would approach that with the same restraint and with the same austerity and the same adoration too.
Yes.
For the divine of the universe.
Well, that's where being dedicated is sort of where you're thinking of the divine. And, you know, to practice karma yoga, trying to pay attention to the means and not to the end, trying to pay attention to doing your very best and dedicating it. So that's, you know, that includes all the yogas in one sense, because you have to have the self-restraint and the austerity and the love in order to do those things.
The mental discipline and spiritual discipline.
Yes.
Thank you.
So should we close our session?
Announcements.
Okay. This is the only thing that here. Is this, but I don't do them tomorrow?
Yeah, but you'll get them tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, you have to come back to the temple because Anantaprana is going to give a lecture on crossover fear. And I think everyone this time in our lives, we need to know how to cross over fear. Or any kind of insecurities. We also will not have a gospel reading this afternoon. I think you put in your time today. What was the other thing?
Is it this?
We will have Wednesday. We'll have the regular reading on Sardhananda by Asheshananda, and Saturday, May 17th. I don't know how this got put to the third Saturday. It will be our Karma Yoga Day, but we are going to try and make it regularly on the second Saturday of every month. Something glitched. I think I don't know where. I don't want to say that. So please come, mark down the 17th, the Saturday, to come up for Karma Yoga. Make sure you come tomorrow to the lecture, and I'll do a plug for two books. Two books that have just come out from Santa Barbara authors. One, All is Brahman, The Story of Sarah Fox by Amrita. And the other one, wonderful book I've gotten into about the 5th chapter already. And the other book just arrived today, Vedanta, The Next Steps by Pravrajika. It's kind of a companion book to Vedanta, A Simple Introduction. So read that one, then get her new one. Okay. And thank you all for being here. Big thanks to our